Hello everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. There was some really good racing over the last 7 days and I've picked out 6 races to have a look at that are of particular interest as far as the RaceIQ data is concerned. We're going to go to Haydock, we're going to go to the Curragh and we will go to York as well. And there were 2 outstanding time performances this week, perhaps in races that you might not expect. We are going to start at Haydock Park. Let's have a look at the winners and the commensurate times. The going was very testing, soft, heavy in places on the round course after watering and plenty of rain. I'm going to have a look at Inisherin in the 2:25, the sandy lane over 6 furlongs. That time wasn't too bad, 1:12.77, just 2.27 outside. It was a pretty good performance on the clock, as was Kerdos' performance in the Temple Stakes as well. I'm also going to have a look at English Oak, who won the 3 o'clock contest over 7 furlongs. So they're very much in form. Ed Walker, it's a horse who might be winning, certainly running well at Royal Ascot. That wasn't a fiercely run race, but nonetheless worth looking back at. The Divine Comedy race, very slow, as was Corsican Caper as well. But we start with Inisherin in the Sandy Lane. And this is one of the best time performances of the weekend. Inisherin from 3 under Tom Eaves, Orne from 7 was second, and the returning Van Dijk, the Middle Park winner, was back in 3rd place. He's in the striped colours, the yellow and black stripes, and you can see immediately if you just focus on him that he's a little bit too free and keen on his seasonal reappearance. It was becoming something of a habit towards the end of last season that he was keen in his races, and it's just something to keep an eye on going forward. The winner is in front, Inisherin in the yellow colours. Now this horse made the running in the 2000 Guineas and went very hard. Remember that race was really strongly run, more of that later on, and he weakened into 6th place. He was returned to sprinting here, returned to 6 furlongs, and he blitzed along in front. He went very hard in the early part of the race and he blew his rivals away. And the consequence of that fast early pace was that he finished slowly. His finishing speed percentage was 95.41. He was tired, but not as tired as his rivals in behind. He'd simply taken the steam out of them in the first few furlongs. Those early splits, fierce, at 10.98 for the 2nd furlong and 11.04 for the 3rd furlong. And that just took the petrol out of his rivals, and he kept rolling better than all of them to finish off relatively strongly compared to them. He looked tired, didn't he? But he still fired the fastest final 2 furlong split in the race of 25.42. Sprinting is clearly now going to be his game. The Kevin Ryan team have found his métier, and he perhaps will head to Royal Ascot now. He's a very fast horse. He could come back down in trip to 5 furlongs. But the Commonwealth Cup looks like the obvious kind of target for which he would need supplementing. But I think a word of caution. Not sure that this style of racing, where he goes really hard early, he gets his rivals out of their comfort zone, will be suited to a stiff 6 furlongs at Ascot. That might just stretch him. He might always be better at a track like Haydock, where he can just blitz along in front and it's not a stiff finish, because he was getting really tired there, as that 95.41 finishing speed percentage highlighted for us. So the story of this race was it produced a really good time figure, a 3-digit time figure, with Inisherin returned to sprinting, bolting up by 3 3/4 lengths. And look at that fastest furlong that he fired. It's not late in the race. Oh no, it's early on. It's the 2nd furlong where he goes 10.98, and that really finished his rivals off, because he backed that up with an 11.04 in the next furlong. And there's the finishing speed percentage. And look how tired all of the horses were. The winner, Inisherin, 95.41%. So he's 4.59% slower in the last 2 furlongs than he was in the rest of the race. And all of the other horses well under 100%. They're all out on their feet, courtesy of that really strong gallop that tore the race apart in the early stages. Inisherin, it'll be sprinting for him from now on. We're going to stay at Haydock Park and have a look at a really good handicap that was won by English Oak for the in-form Ed Walker team. This was a a handicap. Not many runners in it, but they were all horses that were in pretty good form. There's English Oak, sat in 4th place, and he gets the better of Persuasion, who was held up and ran on into 2nd, and Abduction, who was held up in 3rd place. It was Zip who came from the outside post to lead. Baldomero sat in 2nd place, and English Oak sat back in 4th spot. Now, I mentioned with Inisherin that he might be a Commonwealth Cup horse, so keep an eye on Royal Ascot for him. And I think you need to keep an eye on Royal Ascot for this fella, English Oak, who sat in 3rd place. For he is able to quicken up off what was just an ordinary gallop. He finished quite strongly. His finishing speed percentage, 107.05, so 7.05% quicker in the last 2 furlongs than he was in the previous 5. Now remember, we're on quite soft ground here, soft, heavy in places, but yet he's still able to quicken quite sharply. Once Oisin Murphy can get him out of a bit of a pocket. He's blocked in by Baldomero. Zip's not really stopping in front at this stage, so he's going to have to fashion a passage between horses. But when he does, he quickens up really well. Just a moment there where he gets briefly checked. Now he's out, and his 6th furlong's impressive, 11.46 in pretty soft ground. And you can see there, once Oisin gets hold of him and asks him to pick up, he's away and gone, and the race is over in a matter of strides. It was quite impressive, and he finished off pretty strongly as well. 23.8, his final 2 furlongs. The runner-up, Persuasion, towards the outside, 24.91, so over a second slower in the last 2 furlongs than English Oak. He's completely destroyed this field. He's taken them apart very easily, off a mark of 90. He's probably a 100-plus horse already. Now, with that in mind, he's entered at Epsom on Friday, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to highlight it in, because he's had an easy race here. He's not had a tough time, and he'd only get a £5 penalty at Epsom on Friday, so he could be interesting there. But perhaps more importantly, he could be interesting for the stiff 6 furlongs of Royal Ascot, the Wokingham, for he's got plenty of speed. The furlong that he fires now, that 11.46, tells us how quick he is. He can do that in soft ground. I think the stiff 6 of the Wokingham would suit him down to the ground, and that might be where they head with him. And the fact that Ed Walker has put him in the July Cup as well tells you that they think an awful lot of this fellow. 7 furlongs here was no problem because it was quite steadily run. He could save energy for that surge, and that surge was way too good for some in-form rivals in behind. So bear him in mind for the Wokingham. Let's have a look at the RaceIQ data to sum that race up. You can see what his top speed was at 39.32 miles an hour. You can see that he came out of the stalls 3rd fastest, 3.22 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour. But more importantly, his fastest furlong, where he quickened. When Oisin Murphy got him into that gap, bang, he went instantly. He went 11.46, and that brought him home with a finishing speed percentage of 107.05. And how we know this race was quite steadily run, we analysed the finishing speed percentages, and you see that every single horse is over 100. Every single horse is able to finish relatively quickly to how the rest of the race was run, but nowhere near as quickly as English Oak. He wins 4.5 lengths, and the Wokingham, perhaps after Epsom on Friday, could be on the cards. OK, let's go from Haydock to York on Saturday afternoon and have a look at a really good sprint. 5 furlongs of Starlust's race, the 2:45 contest. There's the times overall for York. They were times that suggested we were dealing with ground certainly no worse than good, perhaps a little bit quicker than good, and furlong per furlong, well, Starlust put up a good performance on the clock. Also Primo Lara and a Term of Endearment. Right, so with Starlust I want to concentrate on. Came out of stall number 1. Lethal Nymph from 6. Copper Knight came from 4. Copper Knight being the York specialist. Now, getting out the stalls quickly at York over 5 furlongs is really important. It's a very fast track, really fast 5 furlongs. And look at these. The first 3 in the race were the 3 fastest out of the stalls, as highlighted there. Starlust 2.35 seconds. Lethal Nymph 2.24. Copper Knight 2.36 to get to 20 miles an hour. They were the 3 fastest in the race to get to that speed, and they were the first 3 in the race. You remember Living the Dream winning the Nunthorpe last year? Well, he was fastest to 20 miles an hour in that race as well. It's a lightning fast 5 furlong track, and Starlust, far right-hand side in the Fittery Hay colours, the pink and green, just sits off the pace in 7th or 8th. and then quickens up really well and goes from 7th to 1st with an 11.18 second furlong. Flies from the mid-division into the lead and pulls clear with a sustained burst of speed. This is really impressive from him. He did a 10.85, then that 11.18, and eased down in the closing stages. This was a return to a fast 5 furlongs for Starlust, and it really seemed to suit him. Lethal Nibs run a big race in second, Copper Knight, the specialist at York, back in 3rd place. But that turn of speed that he showed to take him from mid-division to the front in a matter of 3 or 4 strides was very impressive indeed. His final 2 furlongs, 23.43. The runner-up, well, much slower than that at 24.12. They couldn't live with Starlust's turn of speed, and I think this horse is an out-and-out 5 furlong performer. I think a stiff 6 at Ascot would possibly test his stamina. He's in the Wokingham, where he'd come up against English Oak. Well, I'd fancy English Oak to beat him if they met in that. He's in the Commonwealth Cup as well. But surely the speed that he showed, that burst that he had off what was a pretty strong gallop, finishing speed percentage here was 99.91, so it was an evenly run race, and he quickened from mid-division really impressively. And surely they'd think about coming back here for the Nunthorpe. He seems to really like this track. A fast 5 furlongs really suits him, and that would be probably more suitable than the stiff track at Ascot. That was impressive though, it really was. So you can see here, if you look at him from the start, he was in 8th position through the first couple of furlongs. That's the number in brackets. He moved into 7th, and then look, 11.18 surged him to the front. He was getting rolling with a 10.85, but then nothing could live with him through that penultimate furlong, and he finished off with a 12.24. But those last 2 furlongs combined were much quicker than the runner-up. And once again, I highlight how quickly he got to 20 miles an hour. It just took him 2.35 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour. Second fastest in the race out of the stalls, and certainly the fastest through those final 3 furlongs with an impressive turn of foot. Let's move on to the Curragh on Saturday. Had 3 excellent days racing there. Of course, it was Guineas weekend, and Saturday featured the 2,000 Guineas at 3.40, which Rasalian won in 139.2. He was 2.6 outside standard. Candleford's time, look at that, dipped under standard at 2:32.55 over a mile and a half, and there was a good performance from Mitbahi as well over 6 furlongs. The ground was on the quick side then. It was good to firm in places officially, and I think those times back that up. Let's have a look at the RaceIQ time indexes, which certainly tell us that the average was 6.46. So we're looking at the race times that have been achieved, and we're comparing them with what horses ought to achieve, looking back at historical data in the type of class race that they're running in and on the ground that they were running on. And most horses performed as expected on the day. It was quite a good performance, obviously 8.75 in the 4th race, and that was Candleford. You saw that he dipped well under standard. And just make a note of the last race. We're not going to look at this race in detail, but Jan Bruegel, who won the last, that's a really good time. He's got a RaceIQ time index score of 9.45. That's really taken the average up. You'll see that Russellian's race, well, it wasn't that strongly run, and that's something we'll get into now, because it was a very different Guineas to the one that we had at Newmarket. So the mile at the Curragh, Russellian jumps a little bit keen in the early part of the race, in the yellow colour, see him throwing his head around, there he is. He's just a little bit keen under Sean Levy, but he got him settled fairly quickly. Harton and Jamie Spencer was second. He'll roll along and get prominent in a moment. And River Tiber, seasonal reappearance for River Tiber, for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore, back in 3rd spot. Russellian still a little bit keen, and I think given what happened in the 2,000 Guineas at Newmarket, where he perhaps got to the front a bit too soon and was run down by Notable Speech, who showed a slightly better turn of foot than him, I think Sean Levy and the Hannon team were probably keen not to get there too soon, but the pace of the race mitigated against them a bit here It was a bit too steady for RaceIQ. He could have done with a better gallop and horses stopping a little bit in front of him. And given that, he's done brilliantly to run down those in front of him that are not stopping, in particular Hartem, who's better positioned in what was quite a steadily run affair. And Hartem, to a degree, gets first run on him, but yet RaceIQ can still run him down. And that marks RaceIQ out as being a very useful horse. And that 2,000 guineas from Newmarket is looking particularly good. We've already seen Inisherin win the Sandy Lane at Haydock. Well, he finished sixth in the Guineas. And the Guineas form almost replicated here as well without notable speech in the race. Here we go. Hartem's got first go here, and RaceIQ's got it all to do. His finishing speed percentage was 108.57, so he's 8.57% quicker in the last 2 furlongs as he picks up Hartem from a poor position, and he picks him up because the penultimate furlong he can go 11.01. That's really fast. He's got a tremendous turn of foot, this horse. He's got a real change of gear, and it just gets him to Hartem right on the line. Hartem backers will be devastated about that because Jamie Spencer gave him a perfect Curragh ride. It's often better to be on the pace or close to the pace at the Curragh, as Ryan more often shows us. And Hartem was able to strike for home between the 2 and the 1, but he's completely run down. The winner's final 2 furlong split, 22.84. River Tiber was next best in the race, with 23.18. RaceIQ, he'll be heading for a rematch, won't he, with notable speech now. And it'll be interesting to see how he gets on, taking on that horse in the St James's Palace Stakes. River Tiber in third, Jersey Stakes. And the RaceIQ stride data says that his maximum stride length was 8.48 metres. That's huge. The winner 7.95, so doesn't have such a long stride as River Tiber. And River Tiber was making his seasonal reappearance. So the Jersey Stakes, he might be something to have a real good look at in the Jersey, River Tiber. But RaceIQ shows a bright turn of foot. Race wasn't run to suit. He needed a stronger gallop. And look at his fastest furlong. That got him to the front, 11.01. That is really fast. And no notable speech can do that as well. So the clash that they're going to have at Ascot is going to be absolutely fascinating. 2 proper milers with sharp turns of foot. And the 3-year-old miling division, particularly for the colts, is looking tremendously strong this year, and I can't wait for them to clash at Royal Ascot. Going to turn our attention to Sunday at the Curragh now, and it was the 1,000 guineas day. Of course, the ground was ever-changing really through the day, described as good for the first 3 races, and then getting softer as the rain fell. Races 4 through to 8. The White Birch time was an absolute sensational time, given that the ground was on the turn. Look at that, 0.99 under standard. And remember that he beat August Rodin. We'll have a look at that in a moment. The Fallen Angel time, the winner of the 1,000 guineas, not particularly good, 140.84, 4.24 outside standard. So let's put that into the RaceIQ time index graphic and just see how it stacks up. And there's the White Birch race, 9.74, so well above what you'd expect. You'd expect something between 5 and 6. So that's a big score, that 9.74. And there's Fallen Angel, who dips below the average for the day at 5.1. So you would have expected a slightly better time for the class of race for 3-year-old fillies racing over a mile on the ground that they encountered at the Curragh. So that tells us that that was quite a steadily run affair, in stark contrast to how the 1,000 guineas was run at Newmarket. So we'll start with that sensational time from White Birch, who got the better of August Rodin, the 2 clear of their rivals. August Rodin a little bit tardy out of the gates, but if you look at the 0 to 20 miles an hour data, he wasn't particularly slow to get up to speed, although he was a little bit slow out of the gates. White Birch sat in second last at this stage. And August Rodin just ahead of him, about a length and a half or so ahead. And back in third place, you had Crypto Force. This race has produced, I think, the best time performance of the season so far, just usurping notable speech. There wouldn't be too much between those performances, but this race was run at an even gallop. And when you get an even gallop, a proper even gallop, then you get good overall times. And the finishing speed percentages here suggest that the first 2 were rated quite evenly. with the winner recording 103.05%. So he's come home just over 3% quicker than he ran the rest of the race at White Birch, courtesy of this even gallop. And he's picked up really well in the closing stages to see off Auguste Rodin by 3 lengths. He travelled really powerfully through the race. Now, both Auguste Rodin, who had a finishing speed percentage of 101.8, and that one there, 103.05 for the winner, they were the only 2 horses to be able to do that in the race. Even Gallop saw off the rest of them, and they all finished tired and slowly. White Birch just tracked Auguste Rodin throughout this race and then picked him up through the final 3 furlongs, 36.49 compared to Auguste Rodin's 37.08. And it was probably the most important furlong was the 10th. It's coming up where White Birch quickened past Auguste Rodin. He did an 11.8. About now he's going to do that now from the 2 pole, and Auguste Rodin could only go 12.05. And I thought Auguste Rodin just looked a little bit ungainly in the conditions at this point when he came under pressure. Thought he rolled around a bit, and White Birch took advantage and surged to the line and won pretty cosily in the end. The maximum stride length in this race was 8.1 metres. That was Auguste Rodin. He's got a big, long, raking stride. And I think the form book tells us he wants fast ground. That big, long stride, better suited to really fast ground, like he got in America when he won the Breeders' Cup Turf. So he's going to be better in faster conditions. We know White Birch is okay in faster conditions because of his good run in the Derby last year, but all of his wins have come when there's been a little bit of cut in the ground. Perhaps he can adapt to conditions better than Auguste Rodin. 8.1 metre stride length for Auguste Rodin, 7.84 for White Birch, whose cadence was a little bit quicker, enabling him perhaps to handle the soft ground better than Auguste Rodin. A strongly run race producing a brilliant final time, going under standard in quite soft conditions and surging clear of a top-class racehorse. White Birch is much improved. I think we have to conclude that. I don't think you can analyse this race, given the data, and say that, well, Auguste Rodin underperformed and White Birch was able to just pick up the pieces. I don't think that's the case. Auguste Rodin's run really well, but on the day he's just been beaten by a better horse who perhaps handled the conditions a deal better than last year's Derby winner. But I'm not writing Auguste Rodin off after this. As soon as he gets back on really fast ground, either 10 furlongs or over 12, I'll be happy to get involved with him. And the Prince of Wales Stakes might be the place that he's going to go next. White Birch, of course, also loves the Curragh. A bit of cut and the Curragh go hand in hand with White Birch. So let's just have a look at the data and just sum things up for you. A very good time performance, form to be believed. I don't think Auguste Rodin underperformed. He was beaten 3 lengths by White Birch, but look at that. They pulled 8 lengths clear of Crypto Force, so that gives you a handle on just how good they were on the day. And there's their finishing speed percentages in the final column. They were the only 2 horses who could go over 100. The only 2 that could finish relatively strongly in the conditions given the pace. Everything else finished slow. 97.67 for Elegant Man, etc. They were all slower because they were under 100. So this was a very good performance from 2 really good horses, formed to be believed, but Auguste Rodin, don't give up on him. Right, let's have a look at the big Fillies Classic in Ireland on Sunday, the 1,000 Guineas, which is won by Fallen Angel for the Carl Burke team and Danny Tudhope on board. Now, making the running at the Curragh, if you can get your own way, is often a good thing, and it helps, therefore, if you can get out the stalls pretty quickly. And she was fastest of all to get to 20 miles an hour. It took her 2.54 seconds. You can see that there. She's the grey. Look, she's just in front there after about 3 strides. Lilac Roller, who finished in second place, was 2.93. It's a significant difference to get up to 20 miles an hour. Why is that significant? Well, in a race that was not strongly run, she was able to get to the front and have a positional advantage over all of her rivals. Quite a few of them pulling, particularly in last, Pearls and Rubies in the white cap. There she is, rolling along from her low draw. Second place was a Lilac Roller from 6, and third out wide, Bad Draw for Opera Singer from stall 13. It's not a good draw at the Curragh because you're soon just edging to your right. She's run really well to finish third. She was weak in the market, but she's still run pretty well. So from that quick jump out of the stalls. Fallen Angel is able to adopt a prominent position and go steady. Early splits, pretty slow. She's getting her own way in front. Second furlong, 12.67. Third furlong, 12.26. Fourth furlong, even slower, 12.63. So anything held up here is at a distinct disadvantage, notably Buttons, who runs on to finish fourth. That's an interesting run from that horse. And then suddenly, Fallen Angel quickens. And that quickening burst comes in the sixth furlong. She goes 11.47 and then 11.37. And that, from a position at the front of the field, was always going to afford her an advantage from those that are ridden a little bit more patiently and had to try and come and run her down. But that having been said, Opera Singer, who was prominent, couldn't quicken as well as a Fallen Angel. Asdar couldn't either. There's Buttons on the outside running on strongly. But look at the finishing speed percentage for the winner. 106.39, 6.39% quicker in the last couple of furlongs than the early part of the race. Basically, she's bossed this race from the front. She's quickened when she wanted, stolen 2 or 3 lengths, and then was able to hang on. Now, it looks like she's strong at the line, but I'm not going to be fooled into thinking she'll stay further. I think she's a fast filly. Remember, she was way too keen in the 1,000 guineas at Newmarket and saw loads of daylight. She pulled too hard. Things didn't pan out for her there in a much more strongly run race. But here, she's able to cruise along in front and then show her speed. Her main asset is her speed. I don't think she's a horse who possesses bottomless stamina. She's quick, 11.47, 11.37 for 2 consecutive furlongs. Was really impressive. And this track that suits front runners, interestingly, suits her because she's won twice. She won the Moy-Glare here, and now she's taken the Guineas as well. This is a good track for her, and she's very good when she can get her own way and then quicken in front. That's what's happened here, and nothing could quicken with her and nothing could close in. It was an impossible job to close in on her with her going over 6% quicker in the last 2 furlongs than she did in the previous part of the race. So we credit that man with a good ride, Danny Tudhope, dictating matters from the front, and we mark up Buttons was the only horse from the rear of the field to make up much headway and finished in 4th place. And perhaps the Irish Oaks for Buttons would be an interesting slot. But Fallen Angel, really good 2-year-old, has now got her classic in the bag, courtesy of a really good front-running ride, a quick jump from the stalls, and a lightning turn of foot through those final 2 furlongs, which saw everything off. Let's sum that up then. Now there is the 0 to 20 miles an hour. She's first, that's the number in the brackets, 2.54, quickest into stride. Skellet was second quickest, way down, 2.57. But she was quickest at 2.54, her top speed of 40.49. And she quickened, look, she did an 11.37 penultimate furlong. A Lilac Roller from further back did 11.36, but she had too much ground to make up. Fallen Angel has gone by that 7th furlong, and the finishing speed percentages of most of them over 100. So they were all able to finish off their races quite well. But they couldn't run down Fallen Angel, who had a positional advantage on her field in a race that was run at a completely different tempo to the 1,000 guineas at Newmarket, where you remember the winner came from last, and likewise in the 2,000 guineas at Newmarket, the winner came from last. But the guineas this weekend in Ireland will run at much steadier tempos. The star of the show really this week was White Birch, who's gone from strength to strength this season. Has put up a sensational performance on the clock on Sunday afternoon. And Rosalian's turn of foot, doing an 11.01 second furlong to catch Hartem, was a tremendous performance, for he was poorly placed and a little bit keen. And for him to be able to win means he must be a horse with some tremendous ability. And he'll meet notable speed at Ascot, and that will be really interesting. Hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of The Verdict. There's quite a few horses that we looked at that you might well see at Royal Ascot. I'll see you next week.
Watch live racing now on Racing TV. racecourses.com.